I'm Lauda De Dominicis. I am the Executive Director of Nurturing Minds, and we are really excited to have everybody here for our second session of our new series, Artists for Education. And we are particularly excited to have international photographer Sarah Bones with us this evening. Sarah has been to SEGA 5 times, and I think over the past decade, and taken perhaps thousands and thousands of photographs and videos, and interviewed hundreds of our students over the years. So we're very fortunate to have her. This session will be recorded, and at the end of Sarah's talk, she will be taking questions. So as usual, you can type your questions into the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those at the end. We have several other artists coming up in our series in the coming weeks. We hope you'll join us for those as well. We have author and dream interpreter Tarak Uday joining us next week on January 28th, muralist Meg Saligman on February 4th, and girls education advocate Jody Morris in conversation with Tanzanian recording artist William Moses, also known as the Maasai Prince, and his sister Juliana, who is a SEGA student, on February 14th. All of these dates are on our website, but we'll also be sending you more information in the coming days and weeks. And all of our artists, as part of this series, including Sarah, have generously donated their time and talent to bring us this wonderful, interesting programming for free. And so we do hope that in appreciation for their efforts that you will consider making a donation to Nurturing Minds. And of course, by supporting Nurturing Minds, you are supporting over 1,200 highly vulnerable Tanzanian girls and offering them a brighter future. We work with SEGA, as you know, Secondary Education for Girls Advancement, and they now run 3 programs, including our boarding school, the SEGA Girls School, which serves over 380 girls a year with quality education, career development, entrepreneurship, life skills, and environmental stewardship. We also have a growing community outreach program called Modern Girl that now reaches over 900 girls throughout the country, and a scholarship program for continuing education beyond high school. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn things over to Polly Dolan now, who is the co-founder of both SEGA and Nurturing Minds, and she is going to welcome Sarah. She's been in the trenches with Sarah, been part of many of the creation of our videos, and also happens to be Sarah's cousin. So welcome, and I'll hand it over to you, Polly.
Thanks, Lauda. Welcome, everyone. I'm very honored and excited to introduce Sarah Bones. Sarah is a renowned and talented photographer in both digital and print media, including both still photography and video. And as Lauda mentioned, SEGA and Nurturing Minds have been extremely fortunate to have worked with Sarah, whereby she's produced 5 videos for us over the past 10 years, documenting the development and stories of the SEGA Girls School. Sarah has been passionate about photography since childhood. She saved for her first 35mm camera at age 13 in 1969. She was soon hitchhiking into Philadelphia so she could photograph the lives and circumstances of people living on the street. Later, as a self-taught freelance photographer for the past 50 years, Sarah has developed a successful career photographing local and national leaders of all ranks, including several presidents like George Bush and Bill Clinton. But her core passion has always been documenting people in need, and her professional photography and directing work has brought her to numerous countries across Africa, Asia, and South America, as well as locally in the US into prisons, homeless shelters, and the streets. Sarah's photographs have been exhibited nationally and internationally, and she's been recognized through several awards. So it's really amazing that she's been so helpful to us over all of these years. Moreover, she's been a wonderful friend, and we've shared some great photography adventures together in Tanzania when she came to do the videos of our work. She often had to stay in very humble accommodations She never complained or expressed any reservations about the various things we were doing. She was always eager and excited and worked long days in the field, followed by endless hours of editing and organizing the photos in the evenings. I'll never forget the times, especially during the startup and recruitment of the first SEGA Girls when Sarah was there, documenting each step and each challenge as it arose. Welcome, Sarah, to share your work with us tonight. We are so grateful to have you, and thanks everybody for coming to be a part of this.
Thanks, Polly. That was quite an introduction. And thank you for inviting me to be part of this series. It's an honor. And thanks everybody that's here listening. Yes, I've made 5 videos for the SEGA School, the first one in 2008. The most recent one I did was 2017. And unfortunately, I could not go last year because of the COVID virus. So during these 10 years working with SEGA, you might say there were 2 journeys going on. I was on a journey and the SEGA School was on a journey. As the school grew and evolved, I was also evolving as a photographer. I started out as a still photographer, then I went on and learned sound, then I learned video, and then I went on to become a director. And the school started with 30 girls in a rented classroom, and it went on to become this magnificent boarding school with over 200, I just found out, 80 students. So the changes at the school were amazing, and they were constantly happening, and that's why they had to keep sending me back to update these videos, because there was always something new going on. So we're going to start at the beginning, and I'm going to share some photos with you and go through the journey with myself and SEGA. It usually takes me 2 times to share. I don't know why. Can you see the photos now? Okay. So back in 2008, I got a call from Polly, and she said, would you be interested in photographing the school I'm starting in Tanzania for vulnerable girls? And I immediately said yes. I spent 6 weeks in Tanzania back in 2003, documenting projects for the organization CARE, and I was anxious to go back. And it was actually Polly that arranged for me this first assignment as I was transitioning from all commercial photography into more documentary humanitarian work. And so that's kind of where I started, and I wanted to go back. And due to this work that I did in Tanzania back in 2003, it led me to many other projects in different countries. I went to Somalia, I went to Kenya, Guatemala, Sierra Leone, where I photographed a young doctor starting up health clinics. And I spent a lot of time in India. So Polly said, please come to Tanzania to photograph this school, but the school had not been opened yet. And I was like, what am I going to take pictures of? This is 2008, getting ready, I'm leaving JFK. So I said, what am I going to take pictures of? And I didn't know how to tell the story with just still photos when the school wasn't actually open. So this led me to take a workshop learning sound and audio. I spent a week with some of the best in the field learning the skills of sound, and I was really excited to try it out. So Polly, this is photos by Polly Dolan. What we did, Polly had made the selections of the first 30 girls already, and I went out and visited them in their homes, and I had them tell me their stories. So I spent a lot of time taking photos of these girls, meeting their families, and hearing their stories. Their stories were heartbreaking. You can just look at these girls. They were depressed, they were sad, they were insecure, and they all had to drop out of school because they were poor. And all they wanted to do was go back to school. And their mothers wanted them to go back to school. But it was just seemed impossible. This girl in the background's name is Peely, and this is her mother in the foreground. Her mother was leaving to go sell oranges. I'm going to quote her mother from video 1. We did a mini story of Peely in video 1, and her mother said, I want Peely to go to school so she's never going to have to sell oranges for me. And that kind of sums it up, the stories I was getting. The women did not want these girls to continue to have the same life that they had to live. So these are some of the first girls. This is Lois Jeffries outside her home. And when I asked Lois to tell me her story, she couldn't do it. She just wept, she cried. And that's kind of how it went. This girl, I believe her name was Matrita. She was living with another family as their servant. She dropped out of school and became a house girl. Peely, a few photos back, also had been a house girl, and she was abused when she did that work. So these girls were hopeless, and what they kept telling me was they wanted so badly to be able to wear a school uniform and walk through their villages, because that would just give them some sort of dignity, or say, I am not poor, I'm, going to school. So I stayed on after getting the girls' stories and stayed till the first day of school happened. And I went in the van to go pick up the girls, and I couldn't believe these were the same girls. I was like, these girls couldn't even make eye contact with me, and now they all were smiling and laughing, and they wouldn't stop talking, and they were like lit up like light bulbs. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I think they were happy for the first time in a really long time. And I truly believe they didn't think they were gonna go back to school, even when they got accepted into SEGA. I don't think they really believed it was gonna happen until this first day. So off we went to this rented classroom, and this is the first day of school for the SEGA School of Girls, which now has 280 students. And, Polly helped my dream come true of moving from commercial photography to humanitarian photography. And here she had a dream of starting a school, and here it's happening. And it was so cool for me to be able to be there and see it happening. And something I noticed on that first day of school was they were all giggly and excited, but when they got into that classroom, their demeanor totally changed. They got very, very serious. And I think what happened was they realized that they were having a life-changing event happen here. This going back to school was going to change their lives, and they were going to do whatever it took to stay in school and do their best. This was a miracle to these girls. They kept saying, we're doomed, and now here they were in school. Another thing that struck me on that first day was they were served, I think, 2 meals that day. I don't know, maybe 3. And it's then I realized these girls, they often don't get 1 meal a day. And so they were getting not only their minds nourished, but also their bodies for the first time in a while. And then we all got back into that rickety, broken down van, and we drove out to the future site of the SEGA school. And I took this picture, got everybody up on the roughed out foundation, and we took this picture. It was a great day. Then the girls all went out and played a game of netball, something I had never heard of, but it's a big deal to them, and they still play it and they compete and play other schools. And then I started this tradition. I took portraits of each of the girls, and this is what they look like back then. And so when I was done, after the first day of school, Polly and I went back to Dar es Salaam, the city. We took all the photographs and the audio recordings, and Polly started transcribing them. We had worked with a translator, by the way. It was challenging because even the girls weren't speaking English. So we went back to the city and started editing, and there was a editor from the US that was living in Dar es Salaam at the time, and she edited the video for us. And after that, I handed over my edited photos, the video was done, and home I went. There's one more girl, Pendo. So when I got home, Tracy, Polly's sister, and I put together a traveling photo exhibit and took it on the road to several locations, and Tracy would do a presentation and we would show the video, and that was great to raise awareness for the school. So then 2 years later, they said, Sarah, can you please come back? The school's been built and we need to show that. So back I went, and I was like, wow, look at this school. And I'm like, man, it's really pink. It was amazing, because when I was there 2 years ago, it was just a dust bowl, nothing there. And they had classrooms, and this is where they ate back then. They had their own water source. I was just blown away. And then seeing these girls again, to me, was like seeing old friends. It was really emotional for me. And here they are, like transformed already after 2 years. They were speaking English, they were happy, they were studying hard, and they had their own school. They loved their school. And something else I photographed that year, they had a professional farmer come from Vermont, an organic farmer, and she taught the girls, she and the girls built these magnificent gardens all around the property, and taught them how to maintain the gardens and grow their own food. And the gardens are still there, except where there are buildings now. Or there aren't buildings, they still have lots of vegetable gardens. So I continued on with my portraits. They look a lot different now. The girls are in uniforms and they're sitting in their classrooms in their new school. And I just went around taking all these pictures. It took me a while to, believe this had happened. Another thing I was struck by, these girls lived at the school, the first 30 girls, and they lived in dormitories. And it was the first time for many of them that had access to mosquito nets. It's the first time they had running water and were able to shower and wash their clothes. That was pretty amazing. They would hold assemblies every morning, and they were now starting to take in day students, the ones on the right that are not in uniforms. One of the fathers of 2 sisters at the school was a tailor, and he made the uniforms. He also made curtains for the school. I did portraits of the day students. The girls were happy. They were all getting along. It was great to see. And I was so impressed that they took care of the school too. They had a long list of chores. They worked hard, not only in the classroom, but in and around the school. They asked me to go back and do some more photos of home visits. As a reminder of where these girls are coming from. This is Lucy from the original class with her mother, and Lucy's now a teacher at SEGA. And again, these women, these mothers, grandmothers, whoever is raising these girls, wanted so badly for them to go back to school, and a lot of them made it happen. They were the ones that heard about SEGA and got their girls on the list. And I just am struck that this she lives with her grandmother and in such an isolated location. So for this video, I discuss before I leave with Nurturing Minds with the communications committee on what they want to achieve with the video, how long it's going to be, and we discuss creative ideas. And for this one, I suggested that we tell the story of the school through the eyes of one girl and do a day in the life of the girl. So here I am with the girls, and Polly and I did the same thing that we did with the first video. We went back to Dar es Salaam. We worked hard storyboarding everything, editing, and went to the same editor. We were able to complete our editing, finish the video. I handed over all the still photos, and then I left and went to Rwanda for a couple weeks to do a story on healing and reconciliation for the genocide anniversary. So video number 3, please come back, Sarah. We're growing, we're changing. I'm like, okay, I would love to. I was really excited to come back this time because I was now making videos at home for nonprofits, and I was actually shooting video myself. And I was excited to use that on this trip. There were more dorms, more students. I threw this in for fun. They had at the time, they still do, Maasai warriors were for security, and sometimes security is killing a cobra. Anyway, so the school was going well. They had a entrepreneurship program from some people from Paraguay came and spent, I think, almost a full year teaching the girls business skills and entrepreneurship. This led to the girls starting their own little businesses. There was a poultry program, and the girls would go into Morogoro, the city closest to the school, and they would sell eggs. And it was basically a wonderful experience to see this again. This is assembly, there's more students. And again, I did portraits. This time I wrote their name, they wrote their names on the chalkboard, so they would be easy to identify. So for this video, I talked to the committee at Nurturing Minds, and there were new people on the committee, and they said, we want a 3-minute video and we don't want any talking. The first 2 videos were like 7 to 10 minutes and lots of talking. So I said, that's interesting. And they said, well, people have had a hard time understanding the girls in the first 2 videos. So no talk, if we could just have this like quick, fast, fun video that's only like 3 minutes. And maybe they could hold up signs, I don't know. So I thought, I don't think that's gonna work out. So I came up with this idea, this compromise, where I would ask the girls to come up with a word that best described how they felt about their school. And then I had them walk up to the chalkboard, write the word down, and then turn towards the camera and explain why they picked that word. And I did that in the film, and that worked out pretty well. And for this film, I'm going to show it in a second. And for this video, I took it back to Philadelphia to edit. I had been working with an editor outside of Philadelphia, Billy Wood, and wanted to continue working with him. And while we were at the school, all the girls were listening to this hit song, this hit Tanzanian pop song. And I thought, if we could just edit this 3-minute fun video to that song, it would be great. And so Polly said, well, I heard about this guy who knows a guy who knew that guy that knows the singer guy. And we went looking for one of those guys. And it turns out, he said he does know the singer, the guy who wrote the song, who's like a pop star. And so it was a little bit of hope. And when I went home, we started editing the video to that song, and I crossed my fingers, and sure enough, Polly was able to track down the right guy and got copyright, and the singer donated the song to the video. So I'm going to play that video now.
In the future, I'll be educated with many skills. I know who I am. I work hard, so my dream will come true. I am a new person now. I am valued. I want to be a role model in society.
Now I'm a girl like other girls. I believe in myself. I want to help other girls the way SEGA helped me.
So that was video number 3. The girls did talk, but we had captions, and we wrote the word up on the chalkboard, and that video was successful. So now we've done 3 videos. I get a call, can you please come back? We've got all this other stuff happening again. Please come back. The school was much bigger. It was, the girls had their own store. There were more dorms. The water tower now had a mural on it. There were solar panels. more classrooms. And so for this video, every time I go back, well, they're like, you can't make it as good as the last video. And I always tell them, oh, it's going to be better. And I'm really just trying to convince myself of that. But anyway, I was excited to make this video because I had attended a fundraising workshop with a client that took me on this weekend fundraising seminar, whatever. And part of this educational fundraising thing was how to make a successful fundraising video, what the components should be, how long it should be, all these things that I didn't know before. And so I was really excited to use that criteria for my next SEGA video. And what we did was I was going to tell the story, 3 personal stories that would tug on your heartstrings a little. And so I chose to tell the 3 personal stories about 3 of the students of each age group. So this is Susan, who was the oldest student. We did a story on Victoria, who was the youngest. She was age 12. And we did a story on Rahema, who was in the middle grade. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Rahema's story because it was pretty interesting. She's a Maasai, member of the Maasai tribe. Her stepfather did not want her to go to school. He wanted her to get married because then he would get more cows and more income. And her mother wanted her to go to school. This is highly unusual with the Maasai. I don't know if it still is, but at the time, girls especially were not going to school. And Rahema's mother was insistent that she go to school. And to quote Pauline in this video, Pauline said, Rahema's very powerful and she gets it from her mother because her mother is so strong. So we did these 3 stories. At this point, this was, I think, 2015, the original girls had graduated and we went to visit some of them. She was in nursing school. These 2 were at a local college. That was great to see that, you know, these girls were doing well. Whoops. Wait a minute. I gotta go, I'm trying to go back. It's not going back. Okay. Sorry about that. So for this video, I asked for an assistant. I said, I can't, after doing the last one, trying to shoot video, I record my sound separately and I shoot still photos. It's a lot, so I asked for an assistant. If I could bring one with me, but it wasn't in the budget. So they found me one. They found me a film student from Chicago who volunteered to be my assistant. And I met her for the first time at the airport in Philadelphia, where we were going to go fly to Qatar. And the first thing she says to me is, I'm really sick. I don't think I can go. I got sick on the flight from Chicago here and I got to go home. And I'm like, no, you're not going home. Everything's going to be fine. Let's just get on the plane. It's all going to go smooth. So this was the first day of spring in Philadelphia and we had this freak ice snowstorm. And we got on the plane and they had to de-ice the plane. And it took several hours. I didn't know it took that long to de-ice a plane, but anyway, we missed our connecting flight in Qatar. The intern was sicker and she goes, what are we going to do? After much confusion, we ended up spending the night in a hotel in Doha, and that totally undid this poor girl. And then she realized she had lost her wallet with all her ID and everything in it. And basically I just put her to bed and we got up and went back to the airport and got to Tanzania. And then we get to the school and we're kind of beat up from the trip. And I show them my schedule that we went over and over about what we were going to do. And the head of the school at the time said, well, you can't do any of this because it's exams week and nothing's happening. And the intern said, oh, good. Can we go home now? I'm like, no. So it was no big deal. We juggled things around and it worked out fine. So we told the 3 personal stories, and we also captured everything new at the school, like the computer lab, the library. They had their own wellness center with their own nurse. And the girls loved to go see the nurse. They had successful career women coming in to talk to the girls. They had graduates coming back in for business classes, drama classes. They had a science lab now. They had art programs. They have lots of social justice programs going on. This is Anti-Ivory Club. So the girls were doing great. They were still studying hard. I put this picture in because it reminded me of what the girls at the school looked like before they went to school. No eye contact, chin down, sad. And this is what the girls look like after being at school. This is the cook who's been there since the first day. The gardens are still, providing food. The school also offers counseling for the girls because a lot of these girls have been seriously traumatized in their short lives. They have a gym teacher. The poultry program's going well. The stores, these girls know how to come out of school knowing how to run a business. And so that was the 4th video. And then to the intern and I, she did a great job. She rallied and she did all the sound for me. So then we're flying home from Tanzania back to Qatar, and we're flying, everything's fine. And the pilot says, we will be landing in Dubai shortly. And we both looked at each other like, Dubai? And I'm like, it's okay. I've got a good friend there. We'll be all right. So we go down to land in the Dubai airport, and the pilot quickly aborts and we go flying back up. And we don't know what's going on. And so we fly around for a long time, and he comes on and he goes, due to weather, we're going back to Qatar, and we'll be able to hopefully land there. So they had the worst sandstorm in 50 years. We finally land in Qatar. They tell us to cover our faces when we walk from the plane back into the airport because you're outside for a little bit. So we got off the plane, and it's my first sandstorm. It was blinding. Couldn't see anything. We were getting just, pelted with sharp sand. And so we went into the airport. Even the airport had sand in it, and it was brand new. We went into the airport and got stuck there for about 12 hours before we could fly back to the US. And I never heard from the intern again. I reached out to her several times, not a word. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know if she's ever got through film school, but anyway. So now this is the most recent video that I made in 2017. And it was, we went back to the school to tell the story of graduates. Everybody wanted to know what happens to these girls after they leave SEGA. And they have a full security team there now at this point. And they still have the Maasai. This is the school campus. It's beautiful, more beautiful than ever. So we were given, before I went, we discussed which graduates we were going to profile and do stories on them and show what happens after you leave SEGA. And I get there and talk about these girls. Well, I think 3 out of 4 weren't available, or so, I don't know what happened. They were no longer going to be around when we were there. But fortunately, there were, you know, we had Lucy here from the original SEGA class, who is now a teacher at SEGA. So we told us her story. Here's Peely from the first class, who works at SEGA, and I was told she actually owns her own home now, and she's doing great. And then we profiled Nusura, who's probably one of SEGA's biggest success stories. She went on to higher education, and when she wasn't in school, she would come back to SEGA and volunteer. And I think she was one of 2 girls accepted into the South African Leadership School. So we told the story of the graduates, and my assistant for this trip was my good friend, Tracy Dolan, and one of the founders of the school, sister of Polly Dolan. Tracy did all my sound, and I don't know that she would do it again, maybe, but I don't think people know what it takes to make a video, and you know, it's like 8 to 12-hour days and lugging all this gear around, and she did a fabulous job. And I was actually rusty with my video and sound skills because I have been directing now, and I have crews that I just tell them to go get the sound, you know, what to do. But we had a great time, and that made that trip special for me. So the girls, so we're still focusing on graduates. They come back for different programs and counseling. We also profiled the student Pendo, who's from the original class. She was working in Dar es Salaam, and I went out to see her mother and grandmother to ask them what it was like to have a successful daughter. And I also met them back in 2008. One of the helpful things, a nice thing for me was we were able to stay on the school campus. I was able to stay there at the school for the first time. SEGA now has a guest house. It's like a hotel. And that made my life so much easier. And we got 3 meals a day, and I didn't have to pack up all my gear after the end of a long day of shooting and go back across town to a hotel. And I didn't have to get up super early and have all my gear packed and ready at 5:45 a.m. to be picked up to get to the school. And there were visitors there while we were there. This is a board member with her family. It's just a really nice addition to the school, this guest house. So if people that are donors or people that of interest in the school can go visit and stay there. We documented the latest programs like tailoring, beekeeping, social justice, more drama. These girls love to perform. They love the drama classes. This is Religion Club. They were singing and dancing, and just about all the music, except that one video that we used, the pop song, all the music I've used in all 5 videos, except that one, has been recorded at the school. And I use the girls' voices because they're always singing, or they're outside singing, or they're reciting a poem or whatever. And I don't need to go far to get good material when I'm there. So they're still growing their food. There's our favorite nurse. There's more students. I put this photo in because this age group before, when I would photograph them, would be much more tentative and shy. And now there's this new energy in the air, and everybody's sort of electrified and getting empowered and confident. The school mostly is run by Tanzanians now, and the teachers are just about all Tanzanian. The food is getting better. The cook who's been there since day one, she used to have one pot and cook for 35. Now she's got a whole staff and a kitchen, and she's got tons of pots, and she's cooking for like 300. One of the highlights for me in the last trip was we photographed their new program, Modern Girl. Lauda mentioned it, how the SEGA graduates do outreach, community outreach with this program. And Lauda just said they've done outreach to over 800 girls. The girls that are receiving it love it. And the SEGA girls that are doing it love it. It's really a remarkable program. And I'm gonna just mention what Susan said when I interviewed her after she finished doing one of her outreach programs. Susan said, I take the knowledge that I learned at SEGA, I take it and I use it, and then I pass it on to others. And I thought that was beautiful. And one thing about these girls, they all want to give back. I just think that's says a lot. So you see students studying all the time. They schools' national statistics just improve each year. It's really it's very successful. And gosh, I don't know how to put it into words, what it's like to be able to be part of this as a photographer, an observer, to witness these kinds of transformations. Makes me think I have one of the best jobs there is, because I tell these stories about organizations that do good, and I see it working, and I do my best to tell that with photographs or sound or video. And you know, I don't think my journey's ended yet. We've had to postpone our trip last March, but who knows? I'm sure there's going to be more to tell at the SEGA School for Girls. One thing I didn't talk about is the process of what it takes to make a video, the preparation, the shooting, and then the post-production. I just wanted to quickly say this is, my editor makes me look much better than I really am. And this is kind of what it looks like when we edit. It takes me about a good 2 to 3 weeks of solid working when I get home. I transcribe all the audio. I download everything. I preview all the video. I listen to all the audio too to make sure it sounds good. And then I take the transcripts and I start to put together the story, the video. And I pick out, you know, I do a select group of photos. And then I book the editor for 2 weeks to be sure. And it's like putting a puzzle together. We sit there and make it happen. So that concludes my talk about my journey with SEGA, and I'd be happy to take questions. And if the questions are specific to the school, they probably, maybe Polly could answer, or Lauda, those, but if they're about photography, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us tonight, Sarah. We do have one comment in the chat from Angela, who just wanted to say that it was really interesting to see the evolution of SEGA. And certainly she's familiar with the history of SEGA, but seeing the photos really brings it to life. So thank you for being able to tell this story and really capture the essence of SEGA tonight.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we have a couple people who I think are voicing similar, that they've really enjoyed seeing what the girls' experience is like, and for sharing. And if anyone has any other questions, feel free to drop them into the chat, and we can get those answered for you.
And I just want to jump in to, first of all, thank you so much, Sarah, for how you have been able to capture the school, but really to bring it to life. I have to say, you know, even though we use these videos obviously for fundraising purposes and at our big events, but I use them all the time and I share them with people all the time, because to me, you know, looking at an annual report or looking at a website is one thing, but when you can see the videos, it really does bring the school to life. And the other thing I guess I wanted to share is that I feel like I've probably seen the videos more than anybody because of my role. And no matter how many times I see them, they still literally bring tears to my eyes. You would think that having seen them over and over again, but they never stop moving me and make me smile to see the girls' faces, and you just do a phenomenal job. So we are truly grateful. And we do hope you'll get back there sooner than later, get those vaccines going, right?
So
there are more.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions here coming through. A lot about your creative process and how you, a question of whether you pick out the best photos and then build the story, or do you build a story and then pick the photos afterwards?
What I do is I build the story first and then I pick the photos afterwards. I do take close to 5,000 photos a trip. Then I edit them down to anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000, and I give them to Nurturing Minds to use. But when I go to the editor, I only take maybe 100 photos max to use with the editing process. So I read the transcripts, I highlight them, and I storyboard what I want the video to look like. And I pick out next to each, you know, I also highlight the video footage that I think will work with each part of the story, the photo that will work. I also listen, the sound bites I listen to make sure they're clear. That's kind of how we do it. And the editor is phenomenal. He will, I leave a lot up to him too, because he has fresh eyes. He's not emotionally involved, and he's just really good. So.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. We also have a question from someone who says she has a son who's 12 and loves photography. She wants to know if you have any tips for helping him move forward with his passion as someone who's young and interested in the field.
Well, that's interesting. I started taking pictures, you know, a little younger than that. I would just tell him to keep shooting, whether you're 12 or 22, whatever. It's like the more he keeps taking pictures, you know, get off your iPhones and your computers and just go out and shoot. Just keep shooting. And there's lots of programs and camps out there now that have photography, so maybe look for something like that. But basically just get out there and keep shooting, and maybe find someone to mentor him to help him along.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a question about whether students at the school have been involved in taking any photographs. I think a few people saw the girls using your camera. So I don't know if you want to speak to that during your trip, or if there have been other experiences, maybe Lauda could shine some light on that as well.
Well, the girls do not take photographs other than once in a while. I'll let them use the camera. They actually prefer to shoot video. They think that's fun, and they love to help me carry stuff, and I let them like play around with it. But what I would really like to do, if I become too old to go back over there and do it myself, I would love to go back there and teach a photography class. I think they would love it, especially now that they have computers and have access to the computers and get some digital cameras. And I think it would be a really fun project. If not myself, maybe someone else.
We would love to have you do that. There is actually an organization called Lensational that we connected with a couple years back, and they facilitated a donation of some cameras, but for one reason or another, the training part didn't actually happen. But so I don't think that there's ever been a formalized program up to this point. So maybe we can have you pick up where that left off. I think there's so many girls would love to do that. And from what I understand, it's actually a potential income generating activity, because there's weddings, and just like here, there's things where people can, girls could take pictures and then sell them for, to generate income.
Never thought of that, but that's so true.
Mm.
Another career.
Yeah, exactly.
We have another question coming through about assuming that you will return to SEGA in the future, what do you anticipate being your next story?
Well, that's a good question. We actually had the entire shoot planned out. I didn't cancel my trip until 2 days before I was to leave. I was packed, ready to go. Actually, Polly did go over the day before I canceled, and she had half my gear with her. So we had that whole video sort of mapped out, and what we were going to do, it was going to be very different. We were going to travel around Tanzania to visit girls that were established in their new careers or schools, or and it would have been traveling throughout the country, just like I did back in 2003. And we were going to focus mainly on the what these girls did after graduation, or doing now. And of course, I would still go back and do shooting at the school to show all the new additions, because there's always, my shot list every trip like triples in size. So that's probably what we would do, because that's something apparently everybody wants to know and see. But I want to say one thing about that I didn't mention before when I was talking. If these girls don't go on to higher education, or they don't pursue an academic path or have some amazing career job, still going back there, they're different, they've changed, they're going to make different decisions, and everybody around them is going to see that, and they're going to be influenced by these girls. These girls are going to be creating changes in their cultures, no matter what they're doing. And I think that's important to know, that we don't get too caught up in what they're doing afterwards, because these other changes are just as important in my opinion.
I think we're going to take one more question, for which I'm going to turn it back over to Lauda. We have a question about whether SEGA is funded by grants or supported only by donations. So if you want to take that and close us out for the night. And thank you so much to Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so about 30 to 35% of our funding comes from foundations. They're also part of family foundations that support us, so thank you so much. We do obviously have events which bring in funds, and then we do get small amounts of money from corporations and schools and religious organizations of churches, but primarily it is individuals. So I guess that's a great segue for me just to say again, thank you. And if you do want to make a donation tonight, we would be obviously so grateful. Because it's really because of all of you that we were able to run these quality programs, which, as you can see from Sarah's photographs, are really life-changing. So we thank you for your partnership and helping us to give the girls the tools that they need to change their lives and become empowered, like Sarah said, and have a better future. So thanks for joining us, and thank you, Sarah. Hopefully we'll see you again next week. Have a good night.
Thank you.